And we have so many layers of corruption now, so many levels of outright lies, that the issues of what is right and what is wrong has no footing at all. Now, you know it, I know it. Look, when you're talking about common sense, that's Thomas Paine, brother. You invoke Thomas Paine, right?
Dr. Cornel West was a guest on Abby Phillip's show on CNN to go up against MAGA pundits Scott Jennings and Batya Ungar-Sargon to debate about the ongoing Jeffrey Epstein saga and Donald Trump's involvement in it. Cornel West was also joined by Ana Navarro. We're going to take a look at clips from this panel with Cornel West and the rest on Abby Phillip's show. I want to share my thoughts on this too. Let's get into it together.
Right to what America's talking about. Quote, release the Epstein files. No, it's not just House Democrats saying that. Now it's apparently Donald Trump too. In a stunning reversal, President Trump is telling Republicans to vote to release the files. Why? Well, because, quote, we have nothing to hide, he says. He still calls it a Democrat hoax and says that the Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to because he doesn't care. He just wants to focus on the economy.
So I'm for any, I don't, they can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much because, honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time.
So maybe the change of tune is because Trump saw the writing on the wall on this. Republican Thomas Massie has been leading the charge for this vote, and he tells CNN that support is growing and that he is skeptical about Trump's about-face there.
Well, he got tired of us winning, and he decided to join us. Look, they could have done this 4 months ago, and instead they fought us every bit of the way. But we're, a little bit suspicious of this sudden turn of events, so we'll keep an eye on things. We're worried that maybe they'll try to muck it up in the Senate. I think it's going to be a very big vote. I think we'll get at least a veto-proof majority.
Now, before we get started, I want to mention that Scott Jennings has a new book out. It's called A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. It comes out tomorrow because Trump didn't want the Epstein files released, and he's sort of half-heartedly saying, well, just release them all, while also saying we'll only investigate the Democrats in all of this.
I am tired of this conversation being about Republicans and Democrats because to me it's just so much about right and wrong and the ways that we as a country, as a society, our institutions have failed these victims. I think it's got to be very hurtful for those victims to hear the President of the United States refer to their plight as a hoax. I urge people watching to go and look for this PSA that some of those victims put out today.
We do have it, and we can play. Let me just play a little bit.
They're holding pictures of themselves.
Let's play it.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old. This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
So that's very much not a hoax. It's very real. It has ruined the lives and scarred those women for the rest of their lives. I think collectively we've got to stop fighting about this being Democrat or Republican. This was a bunch of rich men who felt entitled to do whatever the hell they wanted and thought they could get away with it. And they almost did. But for the Me Too movement in 2017, and but for the Miami Herald expose by Julie K. Brown, the truth is, shamefully, that Jeffrey Epstein was well on his way to being accepted and rehabbed and be back in respectable society. And so these women deserve transparency. They deserve closure. I do think tomorrow's vote is going to be huge. I have called upon and texted some Republicans that I know, asking them to vote yes. And they have all told me, these are all people who usually vote with Trump 100%. They've all told me they are voting yes. So I do think it's going to send a very strong message.
Anna makes a really important point. You know, why is it that Trump, if he says whatever, I mean, does he have something to hide? I don't know. No one knows. But putting that all aside, why can't he see this for what it is, which is a very real thing, not a hoax, with real victims, and with a lot of people potentially involved in something, none of whom have been held accountable?
Well, the hoax is Democrats and others who have gone on television and either implied or worse that he had something to do with it. There's not a shred of evidence that he had anything to do with it, but that's what they want people to believe. That's the narrative that they are trying to get out there. That's the hoax. He's never said what happened to them is a hoax. In fact, there seems to be some shards of evidence in here that Trump may have been one of the people that turned in Jeffrey Epstein, which is why Epstein, according to some of the documents, apparently hated Donald Trump. And so the hoax is not that it happened. The hoax is what people are trying to imply or worse
You're
about
citing
it.
the documents. And look, the truth is, I'm kind of where Anna is on this. I don't know that we know anything about Trump's involvement or lack thereof. But I do know that he is named in these documents. I do know that he is named in a way that raises questions. And that is something that is real. Does it mean that he actually did something wrong? That we don't know. But if Trump has nothing to hide, and he's totally entitled to say that, to believe that, he should be clamoring for these documents, for the full context to be released, but he's not doing that.
So you believe after 10 years of this, of him being on the public stage, that if there was something to know, we wouldn't know it by now? Look, the issue is...
I mean, you could make that argument about every single person who's implicated in these documents.
Okay.
That is not a legitimate argument.
And you just raised the key issue.
Every single person who may or may not be implicated, the argument is, if there was something to know, we would have known it. If there was something to know, yeah, I mean, it's in the documents. And we don't know it about not just Trump, anybody.
So you just raised the key issue.
So Abby Phillip is exactly right about this. And this is what drives me crazy about this whole thing, is you have everybody within MAGA, from people on TV like Scott Jennings to just your rank and file, just citizens who are MAGA supporters. People that I know personally are just saying Trump had nothing to do with this. He's completely innocent. And my response to that always is, how do you know? You don't know any of these people personally. You weren't there. Now, Scott Jennings knows these people personally, but unless he was there, how does he know exactly what happened? Scott Jennings doesn't know. He's just doing his undying support of the dear leader, as he does night after night after night after night on Abby Phillip's show. That's Scott Jennings' job. And Anna Navarro is right. I really like what Anna Navarro says here, to say this is no longer a Republican versus Democrat issue. This is powerful people who did these horrible things. And this is another area to me where the MAGA pundits like Scott Jennings are very different from the pundits on the left. Everybody that I see and speak to on the left is saying, release all the information. We don't care if they're Democrats. We don't care if they're Republicans. If they were involved in this, if they did anything illegal, put them on trial, put them in prison. But of course, Scott Jennings is never going to say that, because everything with him is but the Democrats, but Biden. He can never admit, Scott Jennings, that the dear leader could have ever done anything wrong. I don't understand why, even if you support a particular politician, you can't say, okay, let all the evidence out. If he's guilty, he's guilty. Doesn't matter if it's my team or the other team. But that's not what Scott Jennings is. He's a propagandist, and his job is to spread misinformation and disinformation on shows like Abby Phillip's show.
You use the word implicated. If someone's name appears in these documents, it doesn't necessarily mean they did anything wrong, but I'm sure that is going to lead people to say, oh, they've been implicated. And so we'll see what comes out. I have no expectations.
Scott, can I tell you, they may not have done something criminal. Just the fact that they are having email exchanges does not mean that they did something criminal.
Like Larry Summers.
Okay, but
or Stacey Plaskett.
Yes.
The fact that they're having exchanges with Epstein.
That may not be criminal. I do think it is wrong. And the reason I think it's wrong is because by the time that the emails that we are seeing in this trove that was released are from 2019 and 2018 and 2016. Mm-hmm. That is way after Epstein had served 13 months in that sweetheart deal in Florida, after he had served 1 year under house arrest, after he had registered as a sex offender. And so these people, a lot of them who are folks that are admired by our society, famous, rich, powerful, in very elite circles in Palm Beach and in New York, were conversing with him and communicating with him and treating him I mean, people like Deepak Chopra.
Does that agree.
Human being.
Does your concern apply to Stacey Plaskett?
Absolutely.
It applies to that. Did you just hear me?
Across the board.
Did you just hear me say?
You think she should resign?
There you go again.
Scott,
there you go again, trying to make this into a Democrat.
I think it's very.
She was being programmed by him after the moment you said we all knew.
It's very hypocritical for you to call out the names of only the Democrats, but not apply the very same logic to everyone.
What Republican was he programming?
Listen, hold on. You're basically saying if you're named in these documents, I guess you're saying that they should be condemned. Anna is basically saying, let it all out. But you're the only one who's making a carve out for one person, and that's Donald Trump.
There's no evidence that he had any contact with Epstein after he excommunicated him, but we do have evidence that he was programming Democrat members of Congress. Why isn't that a big deal to you guys?
I guess the point is we just don't know.
We do know that. We absolutely know he was programming Plaskett.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what we don't know about the Trump bit of it. That's all I'm saying.
No, but I mean, the sad thing is, Sister Anna's point about the weighting, gravity toss of what is right and what is wrong so easily gets erased and eliminated because integrity, honesty, and decency gets pushed aside and it becomes just a partisan matter of Democrats versus Republicans. We know that gangsterism is promiscuous. It will lie with Democrats, Republicans, independents, leftist, center, right, Christians, Jews, Catholics, Muslims. It's a human thing. And we have so many layers of corruption now, so many levels of outright lies that the issues of what is right and what is wrong has no footing at all. Now, you know it, I know it. Look, when you're talking about common sense, that's Thomas Paine, brother. You invoke Thomas Paine, right?
I'll tell you
Paine has a morality in his text, and he's a foe of tyrants, a foe of autocrats, and a foe of
Batya, why is Trump flip-flopping on this? On whether or not he would support the vote and the release of the documents?
So first of all, I think some documents that named him that came out last week, actually, he came off looking pretty good. Like, he didn't like how Jeffrey Epstein was behaving and he cut off ties with him. I'm sure that
I don't
played
think that's
a role
what the
in it.
document said. The document said that Jeffrey Epstein didn't like Trump, which we know, but they also had a falling out much earlier over essentially real estate in Florida.
Well,
that's what we do know.
It's unclear what it was exactly over, but he did learn that Jeffrey Epstein really didn't like him, and that's what sort of the trend was in those documents. I think also, Trump is very good at reading his base, and I have to say, I think there's a real divide here between the voter base and then the online content creators of the right. Those people are obsessed with Jeffrey Epstein, and a lot of Republican lawmakers are very much enthralled to this online energy. But the actual voting base, I think they really don't care about that. They care about immigration and they care about affordability. And I think Trump felt that now we're going to waste a whole week talking about this thing that is, you're right, it's important to talk about it. Justice for the victims, of course, is extremely important. But a lot of people get caught up in that dragnet. Alan Dershowitz is a perfect example. He's a person who was named by one of the victims, and she had to recant, but he never got his reputation back. And so I think the question is how many Jeffrey Epsteins are in there? How many Larry?
We do have to hit pause here.
There's three Republican women, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not a fan of any of them. However, those women, I think, are not looking at this through a political prism. I think they're looking at this as women, because we all know that before Me Too, a lot of people thought it was okay to sexually harass women and to sexually abuse women, particularly if you were rich and empowered and entitled in this country and get away with it. It's not just Jeffrey Epstein. There's a bunch of Jeffrey Epsteins and rich men. That's what he was coddling to. And I'll tell you another person that I give a lot of credit to, Howard Lutnick, the current Secretary of Commerce, who was his next door neighbor, Jeffrey Epstein, and went to his house once and said, I didn't have to go there again. Go listen to the podcast people that he did on this. He went there once. He saw a massage table surrounded by candles in the living room, and he got so creeped out he never set foot there again.
We got to leave it there.
And Howard Lutnick for telling that story. Now, Howard Lutnick, I think, is a bad guy, but Howard Lutnick for telling that story has been sort of banished to the sidelines by the Trump administration. And as Ana Navarro is saying here, Donald Trump was one of those men that felt like he could do whatever he wanted with the famous grab them by the P word. So, and we also have victims who have testified as to the horrible things that they say Donald Trump did to them. But of course, Scott Jennings is going to just gloss over that. Because as Anna Navarro says here to Abby Phillip and to Scott Jennings right to his face, I'm paraphrasing, but you're just a partisan who is going to completely ignore any possibility that Donald Trump could have had any involvement with this and just continually say, but the Democrats, but the Democrats. So who do you agree with here? Are you on the side of Anna Navarro and Cornel West just says, I'm done with all of them. The Democrats and the Republicans are completely corrupt. But are you on their side and with Abby Phillip, who is just saying to Scott Jennings, we just don't know. Let the evidence come out. Or are you on the MAGA side of Scott Jennings and Batya Ungar-Sargon? There's nothing to see here unless it's something where we can implicate the Democrats. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.